Hey everybody, Jason Leisure, Joe Schad here from the Palm Beach Post. A lot going on today in Davie, Joe. We talked to all of the big power people in the Dolphins organization, Adam Gase, Mike Tannenbaum, Chris Greer, but we need to address the elephant in the room here. You want to explain to the people what happened today?
Well, a couple of years ago, before a trip to Newport, Rhode Island, I went to the local Banana Republic in West Hartford, Connecticut, and picked up this very nice light blue 38 regular sports coat.
Do you think that's light blue? That's gray, man.
I have a little bit of a colorblind issue.
Blue-gray.
Blue-gray.
There is no blue in this coat.
This is perfect for Newport, Rhode Island. I did not know that Jason Leisure owns the exact same jacket. So earlier today, I texted Jason, hey, I'm in a shirt and collar and jacket kind of mood. So just in case you care and you want to wear a jacket,
we text each other stuff like that, every now and then.
Yes, we are dressed the same, Loxley. Now, you should know that I have another jacket in my car, and I could have switched, but I decided it would be better for all involved.
Joe texts me that he's going to wear a jacket, and I'm thinking, now, Joe, I've only ever seen Joe wear a navy blue jacket. That's his color.
I do have a gray jacket.
So I thought if I pull this gray jacket out of my closet, I'm good. And sure enough, here we are.
Well, we weren't on the same page, but it's pretty clear
we tried to be. It was weird because we tried to be, and it made it worse.
It was pretty clear at today's news availability here at Dolphins camp that executives Mike Tannenbaum and Chris Greer and head coach Adam Gase are all on the same page. Jason, at the time that we visited with them, which was 1 o'clock Eastern today on this Wednesday, Gase did not know if for sure he was going to lose defensive coordinator Vance Joseph to the Denver Broncos as head coach. That has happened. It is official. The Miami Dolphins need a new defensive coordinator. What's your reaction to the news, Jay?
Well, I'm not surprised by it, Joe, because Vance Joseph has been around for so long, and he was a head coaching candidate previously. And when you talk to Vance Joseph, you can get into all of the strategic stuff, which you need to. But when you talk to him, he's got that personality. He's got that CEO, authoritative head coach personality that I think is really going to serve him well. Now, I know you were a little more surprised.
I was skeptical.
That this happened,
I was skeptical because Vance Joseph is a great guy who certainly was going to be a head coach at some point in time. The players feel that he has excellent leadership skills and communication skills, but the Dolphins' defense was 29th in the NFL.
And worst in their history in terms of yardage.
And worst in history. And so, Jason, you were right.
Oh, man, this is hard for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought for sure that it was unlikely that Vance Joseph was going to get a head coaching job, but he did. So
I bet on it in Vegas. I got 7-1 odds on that. It's
you were right. By the way,
pay for all the bad things.
One thing I was right about
holiday weekend.
One thing I was right about was that Clemson was going to beat Alabama. And if you don't believe me, I can show you the text messages to my friend who was in Vegas.
Do you guys believe him, or does he have to show you the text?
No, I did believe that Clemson.
When we talked to Chris Greer, the general manager, so just to help you guys with this, it's kind of a very intricate power structure they've got. They've all got different final authorities on things, and they work in conjunction with each other. But we talked to Gase, Chris Greer, the general manager, and Mike Tannenbaum, who is the executive vice president of football operations. And the main thing I got from that, Joe, is that big picture, they don't really want to reveal much about what they're going to do. There were not a lot of specifics.
There are hints, though.
There are some, right. You really got to sift through some things to find it.
Yeah. So, for example, even though head coach Adam Gase wasn't willing to publicly say that he's going to promote from within for defensive coordinator, I got the idea that Gase is likely to do just that. Now, we know that Gase has a high affinity for linebackers coach Matt Burke. And I saw you guys have asked a couple of questions about Matt Burke. Yeah. I've never met Matt Burke.
No.
I have no idea what his personality.
Bearded guy.
He's got a nice beard. I do not know what his leadership or personality style is like, but what Gase told us today is that they don't want to go to a 3-4 defense. They want to keep what he considers to be the Miami Dolphins scheme, the Miami Dolphins defense.
He talked about wanting to make it that when they hired Vance Joseph. So they have a defensive philosophy, even though Gase is an offensive coach. But Vance Joseph was brought in because he fits that philosophy, and that philosophy will endure with or without Vance Joseph. Is that how you are hearing that?
Not surprisingly, I wasn't here in the spring, but I know that the philosophy is we want to be aggressive, We want to invest money in the front line, and we want to sack the quarterback. We want to find a way to play press coverage in the secondary as much as possible. What's interesting is the Dolphins did not rank very highly in the NFL in sacks. And they were most successful this year when utilizing various zone coverages and not utilizing the press coverage. So sometimes what you want to do doesn't line up with the personnel. And one good thing about the Miami Dolphins moving forward, Jason, whether Vance Joseph is here or not, as long as Adam Gase is here and Mike Tannenbaum and Chris Greer here, they're going to be able to draft players that fit specifically what they want to do.
And now, these are really great jackets.
Yeah.
You know, at least if we were both going to wear the same jacket, at least we wore a good one.
Who wore it best is a feature.
Yeah, there you go. Like it's like People Magazine or something.
An In Style, I
right.
think.
Yeah.
My wife gets the In Style magazine. Give us your opinion.
One part of their philosophy that we did get, Joe, we're looking at with the Dolphins. A lot of free agents, restricted and unrestricted free agents, a lot of guys that'll be out there on the market if they want to be.
Jeremy wants to know about Stills, Branch, and Kiko.
Those are examples. Kenny Stills and I can't believe I have gone through the entire year without accidentally calling him Deion Branch, because that's what I always think of with Branch. But Andre Branch, Kenny Stills, both unrestricted free agents. Kiko Alonso, a restricted free agent. You also have Jarvis Landry and Schad Jones going into the final year of their contracts. Both of them probably a little Landry significantly below market value for his production. The one thing that we kind of got from them philosophically is there is an emphasis here on maintaining continuity, keeping guys and developing them here and having them coached by the same staff as much as possible, obviously, year after year. So we're inclined to think they're going to try to keep the bulk of this roster intact, especially the younger pieces of the roster, which Kenny Stills qualifies. I think Kenny Stills is 24, 25.
I agree with you. In the NFL, guys are at their best younger. Their prime is getting younger and younger, despite Cameron Wake. And, of course, the Dolphins will need to add some youth to their defensive end situation, especially if they lose Andre Branch, because you've lost Jason Jones. If you sign Jarvis Landry to a new long-term deal, now he's played 3 years in the NFL, because he was a second-round draft choice, the Dolphins don't have a fifth-year option on him. You guys might not know that. Jawan James, for example, because he was a first-round draft choice, the Dolphins are likely to exercise a fifth-year option on him this year. That means that the Dolphins will control his salary for at least 5 years, and technically a sixth if you were to consider the franchise tag option. Yeah. On Schad Jones, for example, the Dolphins have him under player control for one more year and then could also tag him. So at least 2 more years, and he's a player who's 27 years old, so he's a little bit on the older side. Let's start with Jarvis Landry.
Well, can you explain something to people? First, I think this will be helpful to people. Why does it even matter? These guys are not free agents. They've got 1 more year left. What does it matter if they just? What would be the downside to just playing them out at their contracts and looking to do something at the end of next year?
Yeah, one of the things that Gase and/or Tannenbaum referred to today was making the right decisions for the organization and the locker room. That phrase was actually used. So Jarvis Landry and Schad Jones have tremendous respect within the Miami Dolphins locker room, and it's important to reward those guys. We weren't here, but last year Schad Jones apparently held out for like a week with 2 years remaining on his contract. What that tells you is that Schad Jones might not want to take the kind of deal that I think is reasonable. So this coming year, Schad Jones is going to make $8 million a year, which is about as much as the highest paid strong safety in the NFL. Those free safety types sometimes get into like the $11 or $12 million range. I think that a fair deal for him would be $8 million a year.
For more years.
Yeah, for more years. So let's pay him $8 million this year and then extend him for 2 or 3 more. But I get the feeling Schad Jones will want more.
Yeah, I think he would.
So that's my philosophy on him. Now let me ask you about Jarvis Landry. And here's the dilemma on Jarvis Landry. And again, he has 1 year left, but he's so important to the team. Oh goodness gracious.
$1 million for next year. Yeah.
Now, by the way, what oftentimes happens in these contracts, if the Dolphins give Landry a contract extension, they most likely wouldn't tear up next year. It would just be an extension. You can do it the other way. You can rip it up and create a new deal, but more often than not, franchises don't like to set the precedent of tearing up
Changing a deal that's already in place.
Changing a deal that's already in place. Now, I looked at the numbers, and it seems to me that a fair deal for Jarvis Landry would be $11 million a year.
Yeah, I've looked at it and had about 10, so you're right. Yeah, I mean, we're on about
That
the
would
same
put
page with that.
Jarvis Landry in
Like
that
4 years, 40 million, something like that, you thinking?
And that's where I think they'll land. That would put Jarvis Landry somewhere in that range of like 8 to 12 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL.
Which for a comparable is like Pierre Garçon.
Yeah. I'm thinking like I think T.Y. Hilton was in that group. Not elite upper echelon.
Not A.J. Green,
Yeah, I mean,
not like that.
Now Jarvis
Julio
Landry is
Jones.
not going to like this because he considers himself one of the best players in the NFL.
I think the Dolphins consider him their best player on offense. I do as well. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, now another thing to keep in mind for next year, Ryan Tannehill is going to surpass Ndamukong Suh as the highest salary cap hit. T.Y. Hilton, you're all over that, Locke. I can't read that, Darren. You're all over that.
Darren Lockey.
Hilton is the 7th highest paid, so I think he slots somewhere underneath or around T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. He's not going to be paid as one of the 5 or 6 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. I don't think that's reasonable.
That range is probably pretty accurate, pretty fair for him.
Now, what about Stills and Branch? What are your thoughts about how likely it is that Dolphins bring back Kenny Stills or Andre Branch?
Stills is probably my bigger concern because he was such a big part of the offense. You were looking at snap counts yesterday, and Joe wrote something on snap counts for the season. If you want to look at that on the Daily Dolphin, many of you probably have already seen it. Kenny Stills played how many snaps last year? What percentage?
Well, you did the research on last year.
I thought you were going to know. Sorry, I was
That's
setting you up. 85%, right about 85%. Big part of their offense. 3rd in catches, 3rd in yards.
Oh, you mean 2016? Yeah,
This
but
past season, I mean.
You looked up
it was
the
up,
increase.
Yes, he was 84% of the snaps this past season, which was up huge from 58% the year before. But my question, my conundrum, I guess, and this is the conundrum the Dolphins and any football team would have to deal with,
He's
is
their 3rd wide receiver.
every time you are making a decision for the future, for example, you're saying we're not going to pay Kenny Stills because we think there will be another guy we want to pay. If you lose Kenny Stills or you lose Branch, and you don't bring in somebody that's as good or better, you will take a step backwards personnel-wise. So how long is your rebuilding plan here?
Yeah.
I mean, are you trying to build for a 2018 or a 2019?
Yeah.
And you're willing to sacrifice being worse personnel-wise this coming year for that? That puts you in a position where, unless you're willing to take that step back, you may have to overpay Kenny Stills and overpay Branch and extend Landry, things like that.
That was an interesting question from Mike Tannenbaum or Chris Greer that we didn't get to today. I did ask him, where do you think the franchise stands, I asked Tannenbaum, relative to the New England Patriots.
Yeah. Tell us about the great non-answer you got for that.
Well, he basically said,
which is a great point.
We're evaluating ourselves and where we stand and where we need to go. We're not worried about the Jets, the Bills, and the Patriots. It's funny that he didn't just say the Patriots, he lumped in, because of course we're so concerned about the Jets and the Bills. But
you know that's not
the Dolphins
true.
have been.
You know that's not true.
No.
Every division is building. Every team is building their team to at least beat the teams in their division.
Every decision that the Dolphins make is based on where the organization stands in comparison to the Patriots. I believe that. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Even though they might not publicly say that. So the Dolphins were significantly under the salary cap this year. So we look at the Dolphins' decisions that they made last offseason. They decided not to bring back Olivier Vernon. Instead, they added Mario Williams at a much lower number, Jason Jones at a much lower number. Didn't really work out.
Yeah.
They decided not to bring Lamar Miller back. They signed Arian Foster. That didn't work out. They got a little bit lucky in not realizing what they had in Jay Ajayi.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they got a little bit lucky.
Because they spent all offseason trying to replace JHI.
So
it's not like they knew all along.
So one of the things that you're driving at, and I think it fits into this storyline, is you don't want to create unnecessary holes.
Right.
And one of the places where
especially when you're good. We know they're good.
But how far away are they?
But we know that they're good. They're not they're not picking first in the draft.
But you know how in baseball or basketball you add 1 or 2 or 3 key free agents because you think you're close to getting over at the top?
Yeah.
Like you're close to being able to compete for a championship. I feel like in the NFL, it's approached differently. I feel like in the NFL, you can go from really bad New York Giants last year to really competitive New York Giants this year by making like 6 or 7 really key splash free agent signings that work.
Or by getting a bunch of guys healthy that weren't, you add that way as
So
well.
the Dolphins. So this is an interesting. So I'm going to get to Brandon Albert and Laramie Tunsil and the possibility
talk
of
about
creating
that.
a hole at tackle. But what I'm wondering is, what is your viewpoint, Jason Leisure, on how aggressive the Dolphins should be in going for it soon? This is a good column.
Well, so high end of really going for it would be that
Yeah.
you go chase after someone like Alshon Jeffrey, for example, right? Like $15, $16 million a year receiver. I'm not sure I would do that, although that would be a really nice add to their offense. Maybe you let Kenny Stills go and you have him out there. But I wouldn't just let guys go unless you have a real clear plan of how you replace them.
And young
I wouldn't,
guys,
I wouldn't,
younger
for example,
guys.
let Kenny Stills go
Yeah.
unless you have a specific idea of who you want instead of him. I wouldn't do it in the abstract of,
What if
well,
it's-
we can't afford that for Kenny Stills because we want future flexibility.
What about we can't afford that for Kenny Stills because we need to sign who's that linebacker? There's a free agent. We'll have to remember who's available in free agency at the linebacker position. But let's just say you're going to.
There's Lawrence Timmons and Robert Mathis. There's a bunch of older guys or guys that I don't think will leave the
There's
team.
another guy who's pretty good, who's
Maybe
younger.
these guys know. Why don't you help us out?
Yeah, if there's a free agent
Joe's
linebacker.
thinking of a good young free agent linebacker. I'm not remembering.
Yeah, and
it
I'm
either.
thinking like, not even young. Maybe he's like 26 to 28. So what I'm thinking is, would you let Stills and Branch go if you felt you were going to add a $12 million a year linebacker? What would be another position?
But that's not regressing.
Right.
That's taking care of a different need that you think is more important at the time.
Right.
You're keeping the talent level the same. If you were to let Stills go or Branch go and you don't bring in someone, your overall talent drops, you're going to take a step back next year.
I feel like third wide receiver in the NFL.
You're suggesting maybe you mean David Harris?
He's okay. I feel like in the NFL.
Sorry, David Harris, if you're watching.
Some people like Zach Brown. That's funny. Oh, he's the guy that called Kiko Alonso soft. I guess those two can never play together.
They'd be fun.
Zach Brown screwed himself from possibly coming to the Miami Dolphins ever as long as Kiko Alonso is here. What was I driving at? Linebacker, free agency, allocation of resources, how far away the Dolphins are. I think that Adam Gase and Mike Tannenbaum have a good idea in terms of let's invest most of our resources into the offensive and defensive line.
That's where half their salary cap
And
is.
let's not overpay for guys that are 30 or older.
They are very young, yeah.
I think that's because they're a young team overall. What I was going to say is Kenny Stills, in my opinion, is a luxury item. I don't think that you need. I think Perry's pretty decent. I think he's with the Packers. I don't think you need Kenny Stills. I know he kind of takes off the top, and I know Leonte Carew was perceived as a bust this year. He had 120 snaps and 3 catches. Leonte Carew, 120 snaps, 3 catches. I did. What did he say?
Well, I agree with Darren Lockey. Actually,
9
he brought up the point I was
touchdowns
going
is
to
a
say.
luxury.
Kenny still scored more touchdowns than anybody on the team, Joe. That's hard to call that a luxury. And, I
No.
mean, just very reliable. He played every game. He was
Yeah.
out there every snap.
My point is that when you look at guys that are available later in free agency or even on the waiver wire or even mid to late round draft, you can get a third wide receiver. You can get a third wide receiver. Now,
They thought that. They thought that with Leonte Carew.
well, they
thought
traded a 3 and a 4 in this year's draft.
Yeah.
To get Leonte Carew, and he has been disappointing. If you guys missed it, you can find it on the Daily Dolphin. The Dolphins said that what Carew needs to do is improve in special teams and practice harder.
We didn't actually get back to what they said, what we were told about Landry. There was a specific question to Mike Tannenbaum about dealing with Schad Jones and Landry, and the answer was, like Joe said, just kind of a vague, we want to take care of the guys we have, we want to build with what we have, we want to take care of our locker room. A lot of non-answers today. One of them was about Deion Jordan, which everybody always asks us about, so I'll save you guys the trouble. We want to know, obviously, does Deion Jordan have a future here? He's under contract 1 more year, but are they going to continue to keep him around? And when those guys were asked about whether Deion Jordan has a future in Miami, the answer was not encouraging, I would say. It was a non-answer, but I think if you asked them that same question, for example, about Devontae Parker, they would say, oh, yes, of course, absolutely, we love him.
Yeah, publicly and
very,
privately,
very
they get
much
different answers.
non-answer on Deion Jordan when asked just if the simple question of whether he has a future here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he does.
Another non-answer we got,
Left tackle.
but this is one I think you should explain to people
Left
because it'll be
tackle.
interesting, is that left tackle.
Oh, yeah.
At left tackle this year, they had Brandon Albert, 32, 33 years old, Pro Bowl caliber player, not this past season, but
Not this year.
But in 2015 he was. Very expensive player. You have Laramie Tunsil at left guard. He's the future at left tackle. What's going on there, do you think?
So the Dolphins don't want to create a hole by letting go Brandon Albert before they have an idea of what they would have at the guard position if, in fact, they moved Laramie Tunsil to left tackle. One of the things I thought about asking Gase, which I didn't get to, was, is Laramie Tunsil ready to play left tackle in the NFL? Honestly, I don't think I need to ask that question because the answer is self-evident. He is ready to play left tackle in the NFL.
And
if
wants to.
anything, his experience at left guard will help him be even better. Everyone wants to move Mike Pouncey to guard.
That's not happening.
You know what?
That's not
Center
happening.
is a more important position than guard. And there is no doctor's evidence that playing center is any worse on your hips than playing guard.
Yeah, so stay out of this, Greg Larson. All right? Joe doesn't want to hear it
So
from you
here's
or
what I
any of your
think.
friends anymore.
If it was me, I would ask Brandon Albert to take a pay cut from $10 million. And if he doesn't, do what the New York Jets did last year with DeBrickashaw Ferguson, who was their veteran left tackle, who ironically also played at the University of Virginia. Remind me, this is a really good thing. I should try to contact DeBrickashaw to ask him about the situation Brandon Albert is in.
Remind Joe.
DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Brandon Albert.
This is half my job
This
right
is
here.
really
Remind
interesting.
Joe
Well, think about this
of
because
the thing he said
Brandon,
that he'll forget.
Brandon Albert is a good player, and he has been a mentor to Laramie Tunsil. I know that the majority of fans that I read on Twitter are on board with what I think, which is move Tunsil over to left tackle. But here's what I know the Dolphins are thinking. I know this, even though they didn't say it at the press conference. They're thinking Brandon Albert, when healthy, is a above-average left tackle, and it might not be worth the trouble of trying to find an upper echelon guard when we can just stick with what we have for at least one more year.
I think that it's reasonable to expect that Brandon Albert could give you at least one more good year. He was
But
hurt.
is he
was
worth
hurt so
$10
much of the year.
million?
It's not. That's not even really the question, though. The question is, if you let him go, then what do you do? And if you go down in talent, you take a step back next year. And you saw, Joe, even though they went 10-6 this year, and everyone's very happy with that, the margin on those 10 wins was tight.
We like Brandon Albert very much. We like Jermon Bushrod very much, but it seems unlikely that he'll return. I think retirement is the most likely option.
We talked about Mike Pouncey. Michael Damper writes in that they need to replace Pouncey. When's the last time Mike Pouncey was healthy for the season? Mike Pouncey actually
hasn't
had
missed
never
that
really
many
missed.
games.
He'd never really missed games at all.
Yeah.
Very few games until this year. This year he played 5 games. He has the hip issue. Mike Pouncey told us last month and 4 days ago he is completely healthy now and will not have surgery this offseason. We'll go through the offseason program. Fully expects to be starting opening day of 2017.
We should mention that nobody in the Dolphins organization that we spoke to today was prepared to say that Ryan Tannehill will not have knee surgery.
That's another big news item, yes.
This is a big deal. It's taken a while for us to get here today, but you can read about it on the Daily Dolphin blog.
You have that up right now, don't
Yes,
you? Yeah.
it is. Read about it on the Daily Dolphin blog on the Palm Beach Post Sports website. We hope you bookmark it and subscribe to Post on Dolphins on Facebook, because that way you get all the stories sent right to you. You don't have to even go searching for them. When there's breaking news like today about the Tannehill situation, well, what does that tell you that they're still not prepared to say that he's not going to have surgery?
It worries me that he probably needs surgery, or not necessarily needs, but would benefit from surgery. You know, he would need surgery if it was a torn ACL, torn MCL. We believe that the MCL is at least partially torn, but not fully torn, which makes it technically sprained, and the ACL is also sprained. But they're going to figure that out quick, Joe, won't they? The sooner you have the surgery, the sooner he's back.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the worst case scenario is always when you delay surgery and then need surgery, because now you've lost time. And we were hoping that the Dolphins would at least come out and say, look, if Tannehill needs surgery, it will not be of the major reconstructive variety.
Yeah.
But the Dolphins are not publicly or privately saying that. Now I know that you get into semantics here, like is it completely restructured, torn ACL or MCL versus some other type of ACL, MCL surgery? It's, what doctors often say, until we get in there, it's hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, every surgery is successful.
Same for us, man. We need to get in there and have a little look around Ryan Tannehill's knee.
Every surgery is successful.
Joe, somebody writes in, they think you'd be good at radio. Maybe you should consider that at some point. You might want to try it.
Yeah, I did once have a radio show, so who knows? Maybe.
We've been talking a lot about the offense and retaining guys. I wrote yesterday on our website, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, that they shouldn't really change much, that they've got what they need for the most part. Maybe you need a tight end. Well, definitely you need a tight end. Maybe you're considering a move at right guard.
Not sure if Deion Sims is the answer.
The other 9 guys, I like that group, especially if they're healthy.
But the Dolphins were like 14th or something in the NFL in offense, and
no, they were worse than that. They were closer around 20th or something like that. But
maybe they were.
You got to remember,
were they 14th in scoring average?
They were 17th in scoring. You got to remember though, they had so many guys out. It's hard. You're not judging.
So I was 3 spots off.
Yes, you were close.
So I thought they were 14th. They're 17th in scoring average, which is average, and they're going to be better.
Right in the middle, and they had so many issues.
Year.
So would you be content with basically the offensive personnel that you have right now?
Yeah,
or no?
I mean, you have a great blessing at the running back position with Jay Ajayi and Damian Williams and Kenyon Drake, who is very much underutilized this year. Oh, this will be fun. I want you guys to do. So if you read my Tape Don't Lie feature, stayed up till 2 in the morning. My wife, every time, 2 in the morning. What time is it? It's 2 in the morning. That's what time I finish. So I go from 8 p.m. to 2 p.m. It takes me
8 p.m. to 2 a.m.
8 p.m. to 2 a.m., usually on Monday nights. This week I did it on Tuesday because it was the end of the season. And I break down all the film. And at the end of this thing, I had my top 5. Did you read this? The bottom?
I haven't seen this
so this
I know that you did it, but I haven't read it yet.
Oh, no, but this is the good. So I'm going to see if Jason Leisure can guess. I did 2 things. I did top 5 most underrated Dolphins for 2016, and I did top 5 most, what did I say, scrappiest Dolphins for 2016.
So
which
underrated
would
be underrated. Underrated would be guys that were better than maybe we would have realized to the naked eye.
They're better than
they got credit for?
They're better than most people think.
Juwan James?
On the list.
Okay.
You know I love Juwan.
Kenny Stills?
No.
No. Devontae Parker?
No. Who do you guys think underrated Dolphins 2016? If anyone's watching.
Michael Thomas?
No. Let's see. Get the one
Kiko Alonso.
One more guy. No.
I got nothing.
Good guesses.
Go ahead.
Good guesses.
What do you?
I went a little more off the radar, so I went
like bench players.
First,
like Neville Hewitt.
Number 1 was Ryan Tannehill.
Off the radar.
No.
Some deep cuts here from Joe.
No.
Scan down the bottom of the roster.
No.
And pick the face of the franchise.
Other than Ryan
way
Tannehill.
off the beaten path.
No,
starting quarterback.
Other than Ryan Tannehill. But I thought that was interesting that I considered him the most underrated player on the roster. We're going to write blogs about this in the near future.
Great.
Is Ryan Tannehill underrated?
Sounds like you already have an opinion on that.
Mine is yes. Okay. I also had Juwan James.
Okay.
Marquise Gray.
Ah, the tight end, yes.
Okay.
Tight end and 4th string quarterback, just in case.
Neville Hewitt.
Yeah, I think you just like saying that name.
He's my guy.
You know it starts with a H, right?
And Issa Abdul Quddus.
Okay.
Underrated. I went up to Issa Abdul Quddus at the end of the year.
I don't think I understood the parameters of your game here when Ryan Tannehill and Marquise Gray are both.
They're both on the list.
In the list.
They're both. I went up to Issa Abdul Quddus. I was like, Issa, I'm going to write a story about how you're very underrated. And he goes, yeah, that's been done like 10 times. And I go, all right, I have a new
original.
idea. I have a new idea. I'm going to write about how it's time to stop calling Issa Abdul Quddus underrated.
There you go.
So
he's as good as he's appropriately rated.
What are you going to give them some responses?
Oh, Michael Damper writes in that Jarvis Landry is underrated. I don't think he's underrated. I think he's just underpaid.
He's underrated in terms of the NFL. You know, like people don't realize that he's a legit number 1. Legit number 1.
He is.
Very legit
I
number
think
1.
that starts and ends with the fact that he plays out of the slot.
Yeah, it's a slot.
Because Wes Welker was that kind of talent, and people didn't quite view him as a number 1.
All right, here was my other top 5. Scrappiest Dolphins of 2016.
I think this guessing game would be fun only for you while I sit here and guess like 63 guys. Why don't you just tell us?
Come on, just try. Scrappiest. Scrappy.
Scrappy. I'm going to guess Damian Williams?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Why don't you tell us the rest?
Okay.
I could have got the rest of them, but
I don't.
Jarvis Landry is very scrappy. Yes.
Jarvis Landry, Jay Ajayi were my top two.
Scrappy?
Scrappy.
I feel like you have to be small to be scrappy.
No, not like Mike Hall was like a I considered you kind of guy.
Okay. Others receiving
Kiko
votes.
Alonso. I consider Kiko scrappy.
Yeah,
Kiko
these are
was
like
scrappy.
undersized guys though. Except for Ajayi, then you throw in Ajayi, and I'm kind of thrown off by how you're doing the game.
Anyway, check the list. Let me know who else you think is scrappy.
Okay.
Oh, Bobby McCain.
Another small
Bobby
guy.
McCain
Right.
is totally scrappy.
Yeah, because
Like
he's small.
Bobby McCain, like our favorite guys in the locker room are sort of the scrappy guys. Bobby McCain, Damian Williams, the guys that bring like the energy.
Yeah. I still maintain Damian Williams has got to be the most fun person on the team.
You are a
That
big
you would
Damian-
have trouble keeping up with whatever Damian Williams wants to do on a Friday night.
You are a Damian Williams fan. I am a Jawan James, Neville Hewitt, Kenyon Drake fan.
See, Juwan James, you could definitely keep up with because he goes to bed at 9 o'clock every night. He told us that every night in bed, 9 o'clock. Yeah.
I missed that. All right, we're going to be back with more Facebook Lives in the near future, including very hopefully the Senior Bowl, the Scouting Combine, maybe even the Pro Bowl.
Stuff is coming up.
There's a
man.
lot of stuff coming up
fast.
and we want you guys to send us messages on Twitter. And if you follow us, send us a direct message. Otherwise, just put the @ symbol on there. We want to know what you're most interested in the next couple of months. What are you most interested in reading about, hearing about, knowing about? So it's Schad Joe and Jason Leisure on Twitter. And you can also put comments in our stories on Post on Dolphins on Facebook. That's the best way. You can just comment in there and let us know what you want to read about. Because we're here for you. The whole point of this is to be a conduit of information to you guys.
We serve the public. We serve the people.
Yeah, serve my old company. It was serve the fan, which I
There
think
you
is
go.
a pretty good slogan. So, because we're kind of fans too. We are not fans of the team, fans of stories, good stories and
Yeah,
information.
I'll give you that.
Fans of news, information, and news, information, and stories.
I like that I'm being asked how to spell my last name by a guy who's
wow.
probably been asked that his entire life. Donnie Rademacher. We've tried to pronounce that
He
one
told me I
before.
had it right. Rademacher.
Rademacher.
It's Leisure, Lieser.
Thank you.
And by the way, it's Ryan Tannehill, not Ryan Tannehill.
Well, I heard Tannehill so much up in Pittsburgh last week.
Well, it's their accent. They're steel workers.
Right.
They're pizza makers. They're Philly cheesesteak carnivores.
Just like your accent makes you allergic to the letter H. Neville Hewitt.
Greg Cody does not know who the shorter guy is.
That's how he would describe me, the shorter guy. That's an inside joke from a radio show.
Okay.
Go ahead, man.
One day
Send him out.
I'll be on radio too. Thank you for watching. We broke records on Facebook Live.
Yes.
The folks back at the home office in West Palm Beach, Florida, are thrilled that you guys have tuned in.
Are
and
they?
They're going to let us know in our postseason wrap-up meeting. It's going to be great. And they're going to tell us how proud they are of the huge numbers we drove, and it has to do with you. So thank you. In all honesty and sincerity, we appreciate it, and it's been a lot of fun, and we're going to bring you all the off-season news we can.
Of course.
Thanks, guys.